but I'll promise I'll try to be a little bit colorful in my analysis or my description because I finally get to speak in my mother tongue. So as Berkeley mentioned, I was brought in as a specialist, and it's an honor to be here with the people who were presenting before me because I was reading all of their reports, and I've been yammering on about them for years as a specialist in the field. I have worked with integration. I have tried to be integrated. And I have been an employer of multiple people of foreign origin through the different jobs I've had, and the last position I had was as head or director of the Multicultural Information Center, which is unfortunately no longer. And that's what brought me into this. I was put into the working group looking at adult education to sort of be that voice, as I'd like to say, the advocate for immigrants in the room.
The only voice?
You know, unfortunately, yes, I was the only one there, and I talked a lot, as I do. When the job came to an end, Berglund said, hey, we've got to continue this, so I was offered to do this. And I'll try to put it into a quick 17-minute presentation. But what I did was I took a look at adult education here in Iceland, and I looked at it through the lens of integration and inclusion. And it's really important that we sort of discuss it in these manners, because when I started to look at the language outside of Iceland, inside of Iceland, thank you, Berglind Rose, we have the word ingilding, but outside of Iceland, there are multitudes of language that's used. And I find that we have a bit of integration going on, because as Berglind mentions, we all work, and many people function in society. I'm living in Vík in Mýrdal right now. We have 60% people of foreign origin, and that is a functioning society. Whether people are included, do we have the measures to say so? So, anyway, so I use those words interchangeable. So we are to complete this review here in Iceland, and I looked at policies, research, findings. I'll be completely honest, sometimes I was very slanted in what I looked at. Because we know what I wanted to say. UNESCO, what's going on in the EU, and I just sort of at the end of this, I just sort of say, can we possibly reform the adult education system here in Iceland better to respond to the needs of immigrants?
If you talk more to the computer.
Yes. I was going to go in an acting class once, and I always turn my back on the audience. I'll do it again. Sorry. So can we possibly reform the adult education system to better respond to the needs of immigrants? Because, you know, we need to have an outcome, and if immigrants are encouraged to use it, we need to really think about their needs. Of our nation to build a cohesive and dynamic democratic society. Adult education, as I said, I use interchangeably. Integration brings someone into an existing group or system. That happens. We have very strong laws, legislations, and policies about who could be here and how they could be here, how long they could be here, and when they can no longer be here, for what reasons. And then we have inclusion, creating an environment that values the respects of all individuals regardless of their differences. And we have no real clear defining or any outcomes defined or any rules saying how we should do this. So that's what we looked at. Adult education systems play a specific role in contributing to employability, professional growth, facilitating and renewing pathways for further informal education, as well as promoting personal development and well-being. And we look at integration. Those are outcomes that we want. For grown-up adults come to Iceland, they want to have upward mobility. They want to have firstly access to the job market. They want upward mobility. They want to be able to utilize the skills and knowledge they have. And here we have a system that's been proven the world over to fulfill those needs. Here, looking through all of the different things, like I said, I traveled the world and back, or the Western world and back, defined the different components, components of adult education. I use AE, I'm very American, to ensure integration that includes language teaching, as we've seen today, and training. Because sometimes it's that practical Icelandic. You can learn it, but you have to train it in, and it's being able to use it. So a lot of people, like as was shown in both of the researches ahead of us, that people wanted structured, good Icelandic, but they also needed practical Icelandic to get through the day, to get through bonus, and not have to buy 5 of everything because you don't know if 3 is male, feminine, or when you're buying oranges. It's an old joke. Everyone immigrant here laughed at that. You know what I'm talking about. Civics education. Civics education has different meanings in different countries, but that's basically, how does society work? What have I walked into here? How do I pay my taxes? How do I read my paycheck? What obligations have I signed into by saying I want to immigrate here? It's a really important factor. In Iceland, civics education is defined as a part of the reception of refugees process. But the rest of us, have we picked up any courses? Are we picking it up? Derek and I have had some conversations about civics. Maybe that was our education, I don't know. But civics education is a crucial part, and in some countries it is written into the laws and the legislations that people have to have access to it, or there's an obligation for municipalities or different service providers to fulfill a civics education. Recognition of education, experience, and skills, that's primarily done through or in connection or coordination with adult education. Bridging studies, vocational training, and upskilling. Upskilling is a little bit of a form in the negative model of speaking. We have to, but sometimes we do need to bridge. Sometimes we come and we have valid knowledge and experiences, but we learned in a different system. My husband was an immigrant in America for a little while. He's a professional artisan baker, trained and certified in Iceland. But in America, he had to learn how to walk around the bakery and let everyone know he was walking with a knife. You see, he needed to be upskilled or inskilled, as I'd like to say. Integration and inclusion policy, legislation, action plan, funding, evaluation methods, hard data that tells us. The researchers we had here today, they're fabulous, but we need more. We need more that tell us what inclusion is happening when people take these courses and what isn't happening. And statistics, we need these. Everything that's in blue, we have, and we have, and we can improve, or we don't have to improve in some of them. And the things that are in black, we either don't have enough of, or it's not well enough defined here in Iceland. Okay, lots of words. Policy for adult education. This is so little of what I looked at, but these are maybe sort of the more defining themes and themes that we should really look to and think about in the idea of reforming our adult education system with immigrants in mind and inclusion in mind. And that is OECD, a really good report, a really long one that really looked at just loads of data. Skills on the Move, Migrants, Survey of Adult Skills from 2018. I recommend anyone who has an interest in like I say, nerding out. It's a great report to read. It's a little long. I think I spent all of July. Adult education is increasingly seen as playing an important role in the integration of immigrants, but policymakers need to ensure that there are fewer barriers or more motivation, which people who were in front of me described. We need to define that motivation. We need to define what those barriers are for multiple sectors and how we can remove them for immigrants to partake in adult education. You don't build a system if, this is not Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. It has to be useful. European Union 2018, settling in. This was OECD and European Union together. They did this report, indicators of immigrant integration of immigrants and their children. And that is a really, really important factor here. And it's something I looked for again and again to see where the effects of integration. When we speak about integration, it's not just about today, it's not just about my well-being, it's about the well-being of the nation I partake in and what comes afterwards. Second generation. America, sometimes 5th generation immigrants are the first to go to university. We don't want that here because we have a really strong education system. I want my children to go to university in Iceland. Maybe, that's not my choice. But you get what I'm saying. That should be the goal of the fact that I was integrated, I felt included to see my children stand up in that nation. EU, inclusive education and the promotion of integration through the adult education system is a priority. I love that, a priority. Effective and efficient investment, as we saw through, as we see in the way our Icelandic teaching for immigrants is, it's not an effective system the way it's funded. It's sort of here and there and everywhere, and the people who teach it, they have to scramble to get people in to be able to buy the course. We don't want that. We want it effective and efficient. Now I lost my words, and so I told you I'd be colorful. Training, where education training is a prerequisite of enhancing quality and inclusiveness of the education. And here we have to think about, it's not just about, I'm going to teach Icelandic. I'm going to teach Icelandic to a room full of diverse people with diverse needs. We need this kind of training. I am going to teach Icelandic as a second language. That's sort of what I read through the themes of UNESCO and the European Union, that diversity has to be in the mix from the beginning. UNESCO, migration, displacement, 5 minutes, okay. Building bridges, language and literacy. Language skills are clearly a key driver for immigrant integration as increase of employment opportunities to facilitate social and political. No, we can't just look at our labor market. In Iceland, we're doing well on the labor market. Here, these are the makeups of the Nordic country. Our partners, the people we work with, the people we base a lot of things on. They have been for years developing their adult education system and utilizing it and giving it a function in integration. And they have all of the things I spoke about. Things that they do really well are cooperations at the local level with municipalities and shared responsibilities. There have been changes in some of the Nordic countries. We're moving a little bit to the right when we're speaking about our integration, so maybe we can move a little to the left and be a little more inclusive. I'm not going to spend too much time here. The slides will be put up, I'm sure, so you can, but you see that there are many initiatives, and these are things that we can learn from. These are our collaborators. These are our partners. Cooperation is big, evaluation and quality assurance. All Nordic countries except Iceland, again, have policies or legislations, and that's something I hammer really hard on, because here in Iceland, the United States, now I know this might be a little odd that I'm throwing this out there, because everyone, the way the debate is, and in the United States, we have pockets of society within pockets of society. There are all of the factors that we know here in Iceland about inclusion, they exist there, but at a much bigger level. But when it comes to adult education, they have defined in their laws about education, language, and they call it not just language teaching, they call it adult education and family literacy. And it's defined as enabling people who take the courses to be sufficient in society, not just civics, to be better parents. They connect it too. It's adult education in Iceland in America is under what is called, now I'm forgetting my English, the education system for each area. So if I'm living in Three Rivers, Michigan, there's an education system, and it is defined from preschool up through adult education. University, that happens somewhere else, but university can also be tied into adult education for those bridging courses, because that's a huge part of this. It is, the adult education system and this legislation is tied into labor market, but it also has obligations on the labor market to support their people who are in need of adult education. There's a really quick run over of a huge thing. Iceland, here are the different policies that actively speak of immigrants or touch on the subject of adult education. The main premise, Olaf, I noticed that you said that adult education falls under the laws of adult education, Icelandic teaching. It does not. It is not written into law.
No, it's not written.
No, it's not written into law, but it
of
falls into a role that adult education takes. The only regulation we have regarding Icelandic teaching is from 2015, and it's a regulation from the Ministry of Education about the allocation of grants for Icelandic teachers, and there it is noted that adult education centers or anyone affiliating with them can teach it. So we're kind of, out here. We want to be in here. We want to be defined in legislation. We want, the terms to be set out. Then we have this really strong parliamentary resolution for the implementation plan on immigrant affairs. That's kind of like our action plan for integration. And here are the curriculums for adult education. This is Fræðslumiðstöð, that's Atvinnulífsins. That's what it's called, Education Center for the Economy. And the Ministry of Welfare. There's the guiding rules for municipalities on the reception of refugees. And the reason that I mentioned this is because within this there are clearly defined clauses about civics education and Icelandic learning. Again, no mention of immigrants and integration or inclusion in legislation or regulations on adult education. And what does research tell us? I don't really need to tell you. The people came ahead of me. And these were just some different things about the labor market. And all I wanted to say there, I'll finish it just with my words and maybe not all those jumbles on the paper. We do getting people into the labor market really well, but we don't do inclusion in the labor market well. Immigrants work with other immigrants. Immigrants are often in lower paying jobs. Immigrants work in longer shifts. Immigrants experience less rights or an infringement on their rights in the labor market. And when there's a problem in the labor market, immigrants are the first to be unemployed. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you talk so fast. Now people can probably understand why Nicole became a parliament member in Iceland. The first parliament member of
first to be elected, but not the first to be.
No, first.
There were two ahead of me who were fortunate enough to take those first steps.
Okay, but at least we have time for one question to Nicole. If there is any, probably you could see very clearly from her talk that we are very focused on the economy here in Iceland. Also when we think about education, because it's how we allocate money that is actually framing the education system a lot. It's not the other way around, that we are framing what we want and then we find money. You see, it's the other way around a bit. So that's actually, I find quite interesting. So now we have the last presentation.